Good morning, everyone. Dan and Sissik, we're here. It's the Saturday Morning Mastermind, and I'm here with all my friends and Jason, Catherine, Lori, and Samantha. So I'm going to give them a second to jump out, introduce themselves, and then we'll get started in the book. And as always, we love it when you read, Catherine. You do such a great job after I introduce it, if you'll be willing to do that. And so go ahead, everyone, jump out and introduce yourselves.
We're only given a second, so I'm Lori Emmons in Denver. Oh,
There you go. It's Jason from Tampa. Happy Easter weekend, everybody. Great to be here.
Good morning. This is Catherine Clement. Happy Easter, everyone. We're starting at Transformational Agreements. Lisa, whom I met at a workshop in Seattle, went through a radical life change that her work with her sacred contract enabled her to envision in a transformative way. Every one of her life's plans was overturned by a serious accident, which many people would consider a tragedy. But Lisa ultimately realized that the heavens were redirecting her for a reason. Although at first her rational mind refused to accept the changes in her life, Lisa came to see everything as leading her to fulfill her divine potential. At the time I met Lisa, I had been researching the subject of contracts for about 7 years. The topic for the workshop was sacred contracts and archetypal language. And during the break, Lisa asked if she could speak with me about her life. She had been in a car accident when she was 26 that had left her partially paralyzed on the right side of her body. At the time, she had been working as a high school gymnastics teacher and soccer coach, so this injury obviously changed her life dramatically. As we talked, I did a reading on her, and among the numerous impressions that I received from her energy system was the persistent and prominent image of Humpty Dumpty falling off his wall. I asked Lisa, who was then 31, if she related to the Humpty Dumpty children's rhyme or if she had liked it as a child. You know, when I was around 8 years old, she said, I had a dream in which I saw myself getting on a small boat on this big river. I wanted to get off that boat because I wanted to be on one of the huge ocean liners that were also on that river. But I was told that this was my boat and that I had to learn to travel in it. After the accident, I commented to my mom that I had fallen off the wall like Humpty Dumpty, and she said that I had to work very hard on putting the pieces of my life back together again. I suspect now that the boat I didn't want to get on in that dream represented the physical challenge that I would have to work with in this lifetime. Lisa told me that after her injury, she had left the shattered pieces of herself, like Humpty Dumpty, lying on the floor for months. Then she had a dream about the same boat and river, only now the boat was moving in circles. She realized that this was because of her paralysis, which meant she could row with only one arm. I recognized that I had to make a decision about whether I would learn to row that boat or drown in my despair, she said. I also realized that I could never trade it in for another one, even though I longed to. I decided to do whatever it took to master that tiny vessel of mine. Lisa's physical limitations actually led her to do things that previously she would not have considered. The first thing I had to do was to shift the image I held of myself. While my body could no longer move at the pace it could before the accident, I was still in charge of the speed at which my mind, heart, and spirit could travel. Accidents are no accidents, I decided, and I ultimately came to believe that there must have been a reason why the heavens gave me this little boat. And so I went into prayer one afternoon. I imagined myself in that boat, and I dropped the oars into the water while praying, Okay, you row. Lisa made a point of saying that this act of surrender was very difficult to maintain. She would awaken in the mornings drenched in sweat from the extreme anger that arose in her while she slept. She also endured numerous periods of depression People who have not experienced traumas or disabilities do not realize the full extent of what they mean, she said. Your entire world changes, including your friendships, dreams, possibilities for marriage, and potential to have children. It's not just your body that has been reduced in what it can do. All the plans you had for your life are changed, and the fears you have to confront are phenomenal, beginning with, how will I survive now? Yet Lisa made the choice to respond positively to her crisis because she wanted to assert more authority than the accident over the shaping of her future. During her recovery, Lisa promised herself that she would be open to any new options that the universe brought into her life. 6 months after the accident, she was back teaching again. But as she said, my heart was no longer in it. I felt incredibly inadequate, and I also could not shake the feeling that the rest of the faculty felt that I no longer had the stuff of a great athletic coach. As a result, I knew I would have to find something else to do, but I didn't know where to begin to look. Almost a year after returning to her job, Lisa received an invitation to speak to an organization that helps physically disabled children and young adults in gymnastics programs. She immediately accepted and shortly afterward was helping these children develop gymnastic skills. She volunteered her services in the beginning because she wasn't sure if she could really help any of the kids or if the organization would consider adding another person to its payroll. But by the end of the school year, she had become an employee. When she and I spoke, she was still working there. I don't consider what I do a job, she said. Now I can see that all I do and what I had to go through to get here, not to mention what may be waiting for me in the future, are aspects of my contract. My accident, if you want to call it an accident, made me confront myself and relationship to life. I had to rely on the strength of my faith to get through this, and my faith wasn't that strong when this happened. During my recovery, I felt dark emotions I didn't know I had in me, such as jealousy at other people's ability to walk. The hardest thing I ever had to do was to work my way through these feelings and to come out the other end a person who still saw a potential in her life. Prior to my accident, I used my will to make my life work, but now I had to rely on the strength of my spirit. Today, I am able to give more of myself to these kids than I ever contributed as a high school teacher. They need all the inspiration, hope, and self-esteem I can offer them, as well as what I can teach them physically. They make me feel that everything I have been through and everything I do is of the greatest value. I understand their frustration, their fear of getting by in the world, their despair over the quality of life they might have. I know what they are living inside, and I can help them cope with that part of their lives because I've been there and revisit there on occasion. But I am also proof that everyone's life is of the greatest value, regardless of the shape of one's body. The key is to learn to row the boat you've been given. In her efforts to come to terms with the dramatic way in which her life path was changed, Lisa completely redefined her understanding of her life's purpose. After the workshop, she wrote to me, like most people, I used to think that the purpose of my life was to do something special, like be a good gym teacher. So when that something special was taken from me, I also felt that my purpose in life was gone. But I learned that my concept of a life's purpose had been extremely limited. Had my accident not happened, I would never have been introduced to the option of thinking of my life as being guided by a contract. I would never have seen my life's purpose as something I was supposed to be rather than do. Now, I can co-script everything about who I am. Want me to continue?
I think that's a. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a good place to stop? I've got a lot of things going through my head, at least for me.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's incredible that this story starts out, or this part of it starts out with that example, because I was like, that is so ironically close to, I never really related it to Humpty Dumpty, but it's such a good correlation. I struggle with that daily. And I've been through so many ups and downs that I'm getting a grasp on this and how I was going to change the, what do you call it? The dialogue of it, or rewrite my story. Oh my gosh. Pretty amazing. I don't know. Go ahead, somebody.
No, it's interesting because like how as a child, going through and she had those dreams. I haven't had dreams like that, but I mean, I think we all can say we've had our, I'll call them disruptions or, accidents or however you want to look at it in life, things that have happened that have changed what, we thought our lives were going to be. Like for me as a kid, going through what I went through with, you know, the things I went through. But now I look back and I know that it's weird to say this. I don't wish anybody to go through anything like what I went through or anything, but I now know that had I not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be the person I am now with all the bumps and bruises and falling off walls that I've done over the life of my lifetime. And but I never I did. I always saw them as obstacles and as things getting in the way of my life and what I wanted. But now hearing it, and I think it's probably been said in other books and other ways, but maybe hearing it the way this story or this part of this book explained it, because I've had to learn to kind of learning that my boat is not the boat that I was wanting the boat to be, and I too am on the boat that am supposed to be on, and that learning how to navigate it and go with it. And the part that hit me the most was when she said that when she dropped the oar in the waters and just prayed and kind of surrendered, that was like a defining point for her. And I think that's part of, at various times in my life, I've done that myself. And I'm still doing at different times when appropriate. And realizing that this is the growth and the way for me to move forward more on my journey for wherever God's taken me and not to fight it so much.
That's the most difficult part, being a strong, independent, at least independent minded part, to accept and trust that this all happened for a reason, and to find the difference between being and doing, and constantly in search of the purpose for my life and what's gone on. And every day something is different, and which maybe that's a good thing, because so much of it seems like, oh, it's another day, same stuff, different day type of thing, not get in a depressed mood and mentality. It's a constant battle, but it's okay. it's amazing to have gone through this for what, at least 32 years so far. Maybe I'll get another 32, but getting up there in years, it's like, okay, when am I going to find this purpose, and what good's it going to be if it's just for me to overcome this and just to surrender, so I'm not going in circles. Did that put you to sleep, Dan? Oh,
No, I'm thinking. I was just kind of just mulling things over in my head because you know there, there's a lot in this one little section, and it's in some ways hard to unpack it all because she kind of that story with that the lady just kind of I think if we're all honest, I think that's partly all of us, we're all trying to just navigate our boats and go, you know and sometimes I think we do feel like we're just going in circles, spinning our wheels, not getting there anywhere and really wanting to go somewhere, that sometimes we go off just trying to go even somewhere, but finding out that that somewhere really was not where we really were supposed to go. And sometimes we push off, go down the roads that we really want to go down and the roads that we really think we want to go down, only to find out that really was not the way where we should have gone, or what would have been was the best for us. But sometimes you have to travel down that to find out that, and kind of then backtrack and get back to where you were, and then move off to go down back in the right direction. Because I know for me, I don't like spinning and going in circles. I don't like that, and it really irritates me. And I'm always wanting, okay, just let me move, go this direction, even though it might be the wrong direction.
Yeah, I don't think anybody likes to just be going in circles or feel like they've been making progress and then find out that they're back to square one again and back around and spinning their wheels, so to speak. It just seems that way to me, that is not not what we would any of us would like to be experiencing. But I always get so inspired by hearing what others have overcome, um, whether it's a small challenge or a life altering event that they've learned to continue to live on with, or work through. I always just get so inspired. I'm open to being inspired um, by that, and always I've always um, felt like it would be a I don't know, like a not a good thing for us to waste the opportunities that we have in life, and so that we should be trying to row our boat in the direction to achieve the things that we think that you know um, we think we should be going after. It's sort of like, if you're given the opportunity to pick a path, and then you take it and you work real hard to go after it. I mean, that's kind of how I grew up understanding things. So it's difficult for me I can understand the idea of dropping the oars and letting go of that. But at the same time, to me, it's sort of counterintuitive to do that, let alone having the challenge that puts us in that position, but also then having to say, oh, so I should have just been going with the flow of this um, this ancient, current, um, that is directing me on this path of the of a sacred contract. Just just doesn't really make sense to me, um, to do that. But I get it, and it does inspire me. Just kind of hard to wrap my brain around it, because it's just counter to what I've, I feel like, yeah, if we're faced with a big challenge, we should still try to make the most of what we're left with, and maybe find another path or another goal, or you know make the most of it. It's kind of the way I look at it. But if that is going against something that's like something that is as compelling as like gravity of our sacred contract, that it's always going to be um, pulling us or pushing us away from what we want to what to something that we agreed to and don't remember. It's just hard to understand.
Well,
I pray you never understand it.
Yeah, I
I do.
agree.
I pray you never understand it, seriously, because it's I won't say that it's not a physical thing. It there are physical aspects to it, but it's primarily a mental thing. It's how much hell are you going to put yourself through before you finally drop the oars? Because you can drive yourself crazy trying to figure things out. What is my real purpose and why and what did I sign up for and this and that and the other. But you gotta, you don't know until you're put in that position how difficult it is to drop the oars, and yet what a fabulous release it is when you do.
I just
Right.
have to figure out how to do that. Maybe I have dropped them, I don't know. But this contract that I don't remember signing up for, or signing it and agreeing to it, but you still have to carry on and make the choices.
I was gonna say it goes back to like when we were going over the book, Your Soul Plan, and some of the how it talked about how we, before we were born, we kind of, had the plan, and there we knew, but then we come to Earth and we kind of forget and we don't know, and I, I see correlations between what she talked about and that book, and and I believe in God. I believe that God has plans and purposes and things for me and my life and where I'm going. Half the time it's me butting up against that, going saying, no, but this is what I want and this is where I want to go, and these are the things I think, and I think that's going back to kind of the correlation between this book and your soul plan kind of are get into that. there is something that guides and pushes us and moves us forward. No matter, I feel like no matter what, we all have something that is innately within us that kind of pushes us forward, even if we're still spinning in circles trying to figure out which way we're trying to go. But I also I also understand kind of letting go and dropping the oars and saying, okay, give me that inspiration, give me that guidance, give me that dream, give me that push, or give me that incident or accident or circumstance that comes up that will say, oh, this is the direction I need to try to go towards now, not knowing whether it's the way I'm supposed to go or whether it's going to be another, but it at least gets me going forward. And I think that's part of the biggest fear though too, is like, am I going to go down the wrong road again? Or like over the last couple of years, I've had an accident, I had another accident, I have car issues, I've had stuff, I've had so much going on that I've had to react and go from there, and yet still try and survive and keep myself going. And there are times coming home where I just I just I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go any direction because I feel like no matter which way I go, there's going to be something that's going to happen that's just going to stop my forward motion. And that's, I think, part of what I'm dealing with right now. And I don't know. I'm frantically trying to put the pieces back together so I have all the pieces so that way I can feel like I can go one direction and keep moving that one direction so as to feel like my life is going somewhere at least. But but that's how I look at what this book we're going through now and the soul plan and going back and to my thoughts and my beliefs in what God has planned or spirit or the universe. And I think I keep butting heads with that too.
I really believe that the difference between this soul plan that we signed up for that we don't remember signing up for and the idea that we all have been given free will, and so it's up to us to decide what we're going to do. And then you look at the archetypes that Caroline, this author, is speaking of. So many times I feel like the archetype of the fool and the saboteur, those two archetypes seem to have really been influencing my life and my decisions.
Yes, and it's entirely possible that we didn't make any contract before we came here, that this is just a planet where people face heaven and hell depending on their outlook, basically. I mean, just because somebody wrote a book about it doesn't mean it's real. However, for me, I experience a lot less stress, angst, anger, and every other emotion if I keep my faith that there's a fucking reason behind all this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
the anger is a really difficult thing. I was get so mad about circumstances and beating myself up over choices I made, or it's constant struggle?
Well, for me, I get angry and I get upset, and yes, I get mad and upset with myself. But I'm going back to Catherine. My faith and my, you know, that's what gives me, in the end, peace and solace, as to know that I truly believe that, there is, I'm going to use God, but spirit, infinite intelligence, however you look at it, out there that does know the path that I'm supposed to be on, and somehow does guide me, but I just don't always pick up on the um, notes or the nudges or the whatever all the time. But
Nuances.
yeah, the nuances. But I get I get more mad at the circumstances and the things that keep happening that I feel are the things that keep impeding and stopping and keeping me from going where I think I'm supposed to be going, and in what, in my sense, in my, and what I believe, and what is inside of me telling me this is where you should be going. And to get waylaid with this or that or the other thing that comes up, it takes a lot out of me sometimes, and I get pissed at that and upset at that and frustrated at that. I, I do get mad at myself, but it's more at the life obstacles that keep getting thrown in my way. That's where I get mad and get frustrated and irritated, and it just pardon my French, but kind of like, get out of my fucking way. Let me keep going. Leave me alone. But it's that frustrating sometimes.
Therein lies the conflict between what I should be doing and what I could be doing, and having a free will.
Yeah, it's like I said, I mean, we should be making the most of the opportunities we have is kind of how I feel. I mean, or there have been times where I've, in certain circumstances or regarding certain things in life, where I've just said, okay, I don't know what to do with this. Lord, please handle that for me. Give me some peace of mind, and allow it to just put it in his hands, because it's, might be something that's beyond me. And a lot of times it just seems like that time actually is um, a kind of a healer of situations. um, and we can be so patient when we're faced with that, so impatient about it, that we want it to be fixed now. but but that's just not the way it's going to be. So we almost sometimes have to figure out what we're going to do in the meanwhile. I say, well, in the meanwhile, I'm going to try not to make things worse. I'm going to keep moving along, moving in a good, right path that will put me in a better position. Um, it may not be going for the gold or brass ring right now at the moment, but it is going to be a sure and steady course. And and while I do that, I'm gonna tread lightly and watch for those watch for those boulders and um, things that come out of the dark at me. Um, and prepare, but then, give those heavy jobs to the Lord, and keep my eyes open for a opportunity or path to fulfill maybe what I need to in regards to a sacred contract or whatnot. And I mean, I guess that's that's kind of how I'm starting to see it anyway. I've had a lot of things um, that didn't go my way in life, for sure. Um, and but I count my blessings, and um, you know, um, luckily I can, for instance, I can't I've from car accidents and whatnot. I have a bad knee. Sometimes some days I can't even walk. But a lot of the time I can walk fine. I just and I'll feel fine and not have pain. But hey, if I get so if I start feeling really good and where I'm a want to do the jig or do some dancing, then throw my knee out and then I can't walk anymore. It's like it's like I gotta just maintain a threshold or a parameters that I can continue in without you know causing causing additional injury or uh, aggravation. So to me or to others, right? It's like
Yeah, it's that discombobulating our bodies and stuff sometimes just with one little step or one turnaround or something, and you're like, oh my God. And then for a couple of days, you're like, ah, you know what, no, I get that. But and you said something about the boulders, and I'm like, yeah, I'm tired of the boulders for a while. It's like I feel like I've had a boulder after boulder lately, just kind of come and smack me and roll right over me, and I'm just like, stop with the boulders for a little bit. Just give me the pebbles, and I'll sidestep them. It would be nice. But I also know
yeah,
that I'm learning that without the struggles and without going through what I've gone through, I have to admit, when I look in hindsight and I look back and I see that all that was just, well, at the time I didn't like it. I can look back and see now the value and everything, and the fortitude that it's given me and the strength that it's given me, and knowing that, okay, I have gotten through those bad things, and I thought at that time it was the worst thing and the most you know and so I understand that, I'm learning that I've got a lot of resilience. I got a lot of um never say never. I do. I say, and I have to say it to myself. You know, I refuse to give in. You know, to life, so to speak. For all the things that it's like, no, I'm not going to let it defeat me. I refuse. I don't like it. I don't like some of the aspects and some of the things I go through. But at the same point, deep down, when I get to that point, it's almost like, I'll be damned if this is going to kill me or do me in or get the best of me. I'm not going to let it have the final say. And sometimes I have to get to that point, and maybe that's how I surrender. Maybe that's when I drop my oars and just, as I'm spinning my circles, maybe that's part of my form of surrendering and saying, okay, you know, this is not going to be, I'm going to, find that direction and pick it and go, kind of like she said in the book, uh, and understand that this is the boat I have to use. This is what I have to deal with. So, uh, fi- pick a point off in the future and go towards that point and see what happens from there. So, I'm still learning and growing, and and getting frustrated along the way, but at the same time, count like you said, Jason, I count my blessings. I mean, I'm still in my home. I still have my relative health. I still have, food in my house. I still have friends. So I'm blessed in more ways than I can count, and that's where I need to also keep a lot of my focus too, is back on that, not on the things that are irritating me right now.
Mhm. Mhm. It's difficult, but I find that most of the growth that I can muster from life is by recognizing that um, recognizing the things that way I could have well, I should say trying to take responsibility for as much of whatever's happened. Um, and that's what I say, it's difficult because you kind of first you're like, it wasn't me. It wasn't and then you start to think, well, I could have handled it maybe differently if I had given it more time, or been more present in the moment, in a different way, and I can't do anything about it now, but how can I go forward with that understanding, and 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 catch myself before I make a mistake again, that's like that. How can I better myself in that way, um, so that you can garner the confidence, and the um, the inspiration, um, to not only go do that thing again, attempt it again, but even go further and beyond that, and hopefully the part of my contract is to grow in that manner, um, and to grow and to put myself in a place where I can fulfill the next chapter of that contract, and um, be um, and just be feeling good about that, and then instead of carrying around with me the negative aspects of whatever it might be, like that old saying about the person carrying the sack of potatoes. And something, I don't even remember, but it was something about some carrying a sack of potatoes around, and I won't do that story justice, but it was something about, well, just put them down. Stop stop carrying it around with you. Um, Stop feeling like it's your purpose to carry it around with you. Um, but at the same time, kind of feel like if I do that, I get the sense that it's sort of like, for me, maybe only human nature to not want to leave those things unresolved, and that's why we carry them around. Um, but we're looking for the resolution to it within the problem, instead of instead of looking for the resolution and a change that we can make along the path that we're going, um, to that will ultimately help us to realize that we've found the resolution. But we don't get to realize that until we experience that opportunity to prove that to us, ourselves again. Um, Sometimes, I think, and you don't want to have to go through those those moments that many times. you you wanna you wanna get it right the second or third time at least, and not like, aha, I didn't step in that puddle this time. It's the same darn puddle after the rain I step in every day in my shoes, and not this time.
No, I get it. And when you were, I know the story you're talking about. I can't, I wouldn't do it justice either, but I do understand that story. And I think for me, sometimes I like carrying that sack of potatoes around. And I'm gonna say it this way because we get comfortable with it, and sometimes we forget that all we have to do is just put it down. Or in my case, a lot of times I want to try, and this is not nice the way I say this, and this is not, I'm not generating it at anybody in particular, but sometimes I just want to have it so I can show it off in a way. The way I'm thinking, I hope you understand. But other times I want to try and offload it on somebody else rather than just putting it down. And I think sometimes we do that too. Because I think sometimes I want somebody else to feel exactly the same way I'm feeling and dealing with but they can't because everybody's different and they see and perceive things, and they might look at it and say, hell no, I'm not going to take this. I'm going to put this down, leave it here, and move on because that's really not a problem I want to deal with. But that's sometimes how I look at life. And sometimes you're right, just putting it down might sometimes just be the best solution all along, and lighten the load and move off and be able to move forward in a new direction even.
Doesn't it almost seem like in in putting it down and putting those down that there might be a little bit of fear in losing ourselves, and the point of reference from why we are where we are, what makes us think the way we think, is because of because all this junk, and you meet someone, you're like, yeah, look at this is why, you I mean, most of us don't go around doing that actually, but but to ourselves, it's almost like you lose part of yourself if you're willing to just completely give up those things that are weighing on us. Um, and recently I had um, with another setback, another major, challenge in life, had to be like, well, okay, I got the idea of that feeling of, okay, I got all these things, these are all these things, and this is why I'm upset, or this is why this is why these things are the way they are. And I'm like, it hasn't always been that way. I didn't always feel that way. And so I had to what I had I took the time to go back to, think back to when I was much younger and had different views and different ideas. And I'm like, well, what about that? That's also a big part of me. And what would that um um what do you call it? Like part of me, or that version of me, think about this at this moment, if I could go back in time and show my sack of potatoes to my younger self, what would he
Yeah.
what would he have to say about it? And it realized that, a lot of the things that sculpted the way I am and way I was, as a younger version of me, um was didn't conflict with the current version, but it was just completely different, like
Contradiction.
yeah, not necessarily a contradiction, but like say take my background image, for instance. It's I love nature, love the outdoors and being in the woods, in the forest, and out amongst nature, whether it's on the boat or in the forest. Um, but since I was, ever since I was got into college, have done very little outdoor activity deep in the forest like that. Um, and you sort of, that's like a part of you kind of, you forget you have. Um, and I think it can we can sort of forget who we are because of the things that we end up going through. Uh, and so I think that's a kind of a shame, and we don't give ourselves enough credit sometimes. But that's what kind of going with the flow and dropping the oars and just moving and keeping moving has pulled me away from the things that I really, really enjoyed. It's pulled me out of the loving nature, wanting to be a marine biologist or whatever, and into getting a business degree, and because of necessity and circumstance. And so I just, moments of contemplation, of reflection, and willingness to take on responsibility, I think that has allowed me to grow. But it's difficult to put yourself through that learning experience. Perhaps that's part of it as well, part of a good part of it, like it's a good thing. It's only as difficult as I make it, kind of a thing. Hopefully, as long as I avoid the boulders.
Well, it's coming up on the top of the hour. Catherine had to jump off and take off. She's a admin in another group, and she had to go take care of some stuff on that. So any last thoughts? Anything you might want to add, Samantha, really quick before we get off, or anybody else?
I did have a random thought when you guys were talking, and I can't remember what was it triggered my thought. My thought was I wonder, how much of the life that we are currently living, that we keep thinking that it's not the right life, is actually the path we're supposed to be on all along, and we're just thinking we're supposed to do something different. I mean, I don't
Oh,
know, because you were talking about like letting go of the oars, right? And I'm like, if I feel like half the time I'm letting go of the oars and this is the path I'm on, and then the other half the time I'm like grabbing hold of the oars trying to control the thing, and then I'm all frustrated and angry about it, and it's not going the way I want it to go, and then I let go and I'm still here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like maybe I'm on the path the right way all along, and I just keep arguing about whether I think I am on it or not. I don't know. It's just
Right. It's this difference between what I'm supposed to do and
right.
just accepting being where you are, accept what is in the moment. And that's all we ever have, because we can't change anything from the past. And,
Right.
It's just keep on keeping on.
And we truly don't know where the future is yet, because we're not at that future yet. So to know that as we look back, we go, oh, well, that wasn't the direction to go, or, oh, okay, I'm glad I went this direction. Yeah.
Because we're all in the same pond, and we all have an influence on changing things and somebody else's idea of, okay, well, this is how it's going to be. and this is what we're going to do, and it affects everyone else, the ripples in the pond.
That's true.
Yeah, I remember.
Because we're all
back when we were living in the camper, for those 3 years where we were kind of doing the RV life, and I was doing a lot of meditating back then, and a lot of just living in the moment and that kind of thing. And what's funny about that is that I feel like I was probably the most manifestive back then, but this is what it manifested. This whole situation. And so, and so then I sit around here now and I'm like, yeah, I'm back in it again, so it's funny to me because I'm just like, I don't know that it was like Catherine was saying earlier on at one point. She's like, maybe it doesn't, somebody just made all this up. Maybe this isn't it either. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's just heaven and hell. I mean, who knows? We don't know what it is. And we may all just be kind of swimming around in this, hoping for the best, and it goes whichever way. And maybe there's no meaning to any of it, or maybe there is meaning, who knows? I don't know.
And we won't know until we pass on to,
or maybe we will never know.
or when we pass on, it may be we passed on to, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And maybe we're all just,
We're making it harder than it needs to be.
well, that's true, but we're all just a specimen in someone's experiment.
Right. We're just sitting around a little petri dish. We don't know the difference.
Oh, what a thought. No, I don't want to be in a petri dish.
Right. I mean, why not? I mean, there's
Whatever
really
it
no way to
is.
know because, like, it was real. Here's a whole thing on a whole different level. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about gut health and our microbiome and all of that. They were talking about all these little bacteria that are in our gut, and there's this theory in that side of things where they are suggesting that these bacteria are actually the things that are controlling all of our eating behaviors. Instead of the mind over food or whatever, it's these bacterias instead. And they were talking about how bacteria has been around for billions of years, and we've only been here for the past 10,000 or whatever it is. And I had this fleeting thought. I'm like, wouldn't that be interesting if we're actually the vessels of these little bacteria and they're the ones in control all along? It's kind of like what was it? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. When we find out it's the mice that have been controlling everything. Like, wouldn't that be funny? But on a whole different level.
Yeah, there was a DNA specialist that was saying that, and his thoughts were that humans are just like the vessels of the DNA, and the whole purpose of us is to transfer on that DNA code. That's all we are, but something similar to that. But I just want to say, from my point of view, you look like you manifested a pretty nice office there.
Oh yeah, out there on the lake,
lakeside, with a lakeside view.
Right.
I'll
have to show you my chaos in the background here.
You're actually in a dungeon working, slaving over your computer.
I know, wouldn't that be nice? How do I turn this background off? I forget.
But it's perception.
Oh wait,
right? If you
but
the way we see chaos, you. But no, I mean it's really, I do have a nice office and I am happy with it. And I'm happy with our situation here. I just get overly stressed sometimes when it's the kids and the business and the family and the house and all of the things, and I'm like, what the heck did I do to myself? But it is what it is, right?
Enjoy that, because you could be in my situation. It just seems so pointless, and what's it all for?
Right.
I don't have kids anymore, and I don't have a job anymore. I don't have a car anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was really appreciating. I mean, I have my moments where I appreciate all of it, and then I have my other moments where I want to pull my hair out. And yesterday was a good day. I mean, I needed to be working, but it was Good Friday, and the daycare is in the church. The church was closed, and so I had Izzy here. She's the youngest, and and she just always brings me so much delight. We had a really good time yesterday. You know, we were out digging up flowers and replanting them, and you know, the weather was beautiful, and we went, you know, we went to lunch and we went to the grocery store and we did all these little things, and it was just her and I really enjoyed that, you know. I mean, I got behind on my work, but you know, that is what it is. So it's
Izzy really appreciates it. I
yeah,
hope you all
I
have.
do. I do. And
No, I said Izzy really
oh,
appreciates it.
I hope so. I hope that she'll have memories of this because I mean she's gonna turn 4 this year. So she's the youngest. And you know, and I keep taking pictures with her because I know, I mean, at any point, you know, who knows? Chris just had another friend of his pass away. And you know, I don't like to think doom and gloom, but you know, when you get, you know, you get to a certain age and you're like, okay, it could happen at any time for any reason. Nobody knows, you know. And I'm like, I don't want her to miss out on those memories because she's too young, you know. So
Right.
I just keep taking pictures with her so she'll remember.
Well,
When we ride, you know, I let her ride around with me on the tractor yesterday, so we had that too. So I don't know.
it's funny. I learned something, and I don't have kids of my own, but I learned with having Silver as my roommate and having his daughter here. When his daughter, you know, she was here from the time she was like 1.5 to 5 every weekend. You know, when he would have her on the days that he would have her. So I was here. She's never not known me, but in that, you know, she would and I would play together and do things. And I remember, you know, the one time she was like leaning on my back and we were just playing around, and she just kind of goes, and she never learned my name, so she always called me Gus. And she just said in my ear, "I love you, Gus." And the way she said it was so genuine and so real. I
Mm-hmm.
have that memory. But then when she moved, when she was 5, to the house that she lives in with her dad, now her stepmom, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you know, don't get me wrong, I'm happy they've got it, they're awesome, they've got a great life and stuff, but I miss having her here and I miss that interaction. But I would say things and she goes, and I'd ask her, do you remember living at my house and stuff? And
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't
Yeah,
really recollect it. And
she's too young. Mm-hmm.
and it just hurts because it's like I've got a treasure trove of memories of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even though she's not even related to me, but I have, you know,
Oh yeah.
where she and I connected, and it's like I wish she could. I mean, I remember some of my, you know, but I only have very certain ones, and they have a very strong impact, and I think that's why I remember them. But
Yeah.
it's so sad that when we're young and little like that, we lose that capacity to remember a lot of that because we're
Mm-hmm.
growing and developing and putting and overlaying so much, you know, or that it gets pushed so far back into our brain's computer that
Yeah.
we don't know how to retrieve that information. And it just
Mm-hmm.
made me realize how, so maybe, you know, with taking the pictures, hopefully that helps, but you know, I think it's more our benefit, you know, that we, you know, to cherish and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I was gonna say something to the effect of what you were saying, you know, that, and now I totally forgot what that, but it was kind of like, you know, that, you know, sometimes I wonder what I'm doing this all for if in the long run,
We're all
it,
just gonna be forgotten anyway.
well, it to go on to the next point, or if they're really, don't get me wrong, I'm very strong in my beliefs and my faith in God and all that and stuff, but I'm human and I wonder, and I'm going, I does is this really it? Is there gonna, you know, And sometimes it just, makes me really sit there and wonder, is it really worth it all to put myself through all the things I put myself through if in the, at the end,
I don't know. I feel like more often than not, all this work that I'm putting into my life is just so that, my later years are taken care of. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, we're enjoying some of the journey for
Oh,
sure, but some of this hard work, I just feel like, I just don't want to be in the situation my mom's in, with barely any income and her life precariously hanging in the balance with what happens to her significant other, because if he passes, then she loses more than half of their household income, and she's just kind of screwed, or at the whim of how we can help her or not. And that's kind of terrifying. And so I get where you're at, Dan, too, and that worry of the future. And you know, it's hard to sit here and think, okay, God takes care of us like the birds and the bees and the manna from heaven or whatever. And, that we're all taken care of. But at the same time, we're not animals. We can't just live outside. I mean, we could, like homeless people. We can't just live off the grass like the birds can. So we got to have a roof over our heads, and that's where that whole the
hopefully you have an
precarious.
extra room in your house there for
And I
your
don't,
mom.
I don't. I got a house. We got, how many of us we have living here? We have seven of us living here and two dogs. And we don't have an extra room. And my mom has a 1,800 square foot house full of stuff that she can't seem to let go of. So, and she's in Florida and I'm in Indiana, so there's that whole thing. And my sister, she has an extra room, but it's upstairs. And my mom's got knee problems and she can't do stairs like she used to. So
yeah,
we're
but
in a,
Then you get a stair lift.
I guess she would have to. I don't know, something. I'm not really
or
sure.
or the mom would take the bedroom downstairs and the sister move upstairs.
No, no, my sister doesn't have any downstairs bedrooms. All of her
Oh,
bedrooms are
oh, they're
upstairs.
all
She lives
upstairs.
in like a townhome.
Oh,
So, it's just a living room, kitchen, downstairs, open concept, and then the upstairs is, three bedrooms and a bathroom.
oh,
So
okay, got it.
right
Oh,
now we don't have a place for her to just move into a bedroom like I did when I was at the other house. We had a spare bedroom. So when my dad started having health issues, we just moved him in and it was no big deal. But my mom, on the other hand, none of us have a place for her. So it's trying to figure out what are we going to do. So that's a whole different conversation about.
I'm
So
I'm
And
gonna I'm gonna stop the
we've got
recording because
I'll
we're
keep
just
yeah,
it
kind of
going.
we're just kind of rambling. Yeah.
Yeah.